life experience had the greatest impact on you?
That would probably be moving from Maryland to Colorado. I was 13 going on 14. I was just sort of growing out of my baby fat and getting a little more popular with the girls and the guys.
Okay.
And, and I kind of just got the rug pulled out from underneath me when I was told we were going to move to Colorado. Part of the reason being that my older sister, Bridget, was out there and she was getting ready to have a family and my mom wanted to be nearby that. Part of it was also because I was kind of running into difficulties. I was dealing with issues of depression and isolation and things like that. And I had issues from my father's relationship.
I'm sure I can imagine. Yeah.
And so I was just, starting to experiment with alcohol and drugs and finding comfort with, sexual activity as, maybe a little too early on. And I guess that sort of intimidated my mom, scared her, whatever. And she thought that sort of doing a fresh start would be a good idea. But it was really rough on me. I was very resistant to the change and I was determined to be unhappy because of the move. So I kind of didn't let myself enjoy aspects of Colorado until I grew up a little bit more, like 16, 17 years old, and sort of relaxed all that and realized it's not the end of the world. Like things just kind of go on. But it was a big change for me. Kids were a lot different in Colorado. I couldn't really connect with them on a grand scheme as I had before in Maryland. And maybe it was just growing up in adolescence too, and sort of coming to grips with who I am.
I guess if we're going to talk about like my adolescence, it was... Well, actually, you know what? I want to fast forward a little bit. A life experience that changed my life forever was, I was in the Army for 4 years, and I did serve one tour in Iraq, and I lost 2 friends while I was over there, and I saw it all. I saw everything happen. I was there in the convoy.
Wow.
And, without getting too much into detail about that, I'll say that experience after that made me realize how short life is. That was back in 2010. That was April 27, 2010. And that was literally 2 days before my birthday. And, it was intense. It was a very intense moment. At the time after that happened, I've never seen so many grown men cry, really? And it was hard. It was very hard. And, I had a roommate who attempted suicide. I had to take his rifle from him.
Really?
Yeah, it was intense. It was a very intense moment. But, it's crazy. Became one of the people that died was actually one of the interpreters that was from Baghdad. Yeah. And I grew really close to him. I grew very close to this man. And, within those 9 months, I built such a unique friendship with him. I was always with him over there. And, he became like my scapegoat from the Army a little bit while I was over there, when I was having like a hard time dealing with like work. Cause the Army world is like work. It's my job, but I would go to him and hang out with him to escape, So when he passed away in that convoy, I was like, wow, like I love that man. I loved him so much. And for me, I always thought like you needed to know someone for so much time to feel that kind of love. I was 22 at the time, I think. And it was such a moment for me where I said, I learned so much, that if you have something to say, if you want to do something, just, do it, just live your life. And life is really too short. That's when I learned how short life is, after experiencing that. So that was definitely a life experience that had the greatest impact on me because, I had a list. I had a list that I made when I was overseas, and I had it in my computer. It was a to-do list. Well, it was kind of a bucket list. That's what it was, a bucket list of what I wanted to do before I turned 30. And I've actually looked back at that list, and I've accomplished everything that I wanted to do before 30. And that was graduate with my undergrad, get my master's, travel to Istanbul, travel to Egypt. And, you know, those things were just so important to me.
Those are very
yeah. So I really lit a fire on my ass to, you know, to get those things done.
I have to say that my father's death, probably. My father was killed in a farm accident when I was 3. It was a tragic thing where there was a team of runaway horses, and he was trapped in the harnesses and drugged to his death beneath them. And, you know, the whole thing, I think, also fed into my difficulty in accepting that I was gay, because I always grew up with a sense that I had to figure out how to be a man. It didn't come naturally. You know, we always talk about the sense of difference that a lot of people grow up with. Well, I had that, but I attributed that sense of not knowing how to be the kind of man I thought I should be. I always attributed that to my father's death. And, you know, if he had been here, he would have taught me how to be a man. But I didn't have that, you know, and so it was kind of a go-to excuse in some ways. It also, of course, meant that my mother was left in a position of trying to survive supporting 4 kids at a time when women still weren't working very much. And so our family was fairly poor. And it had a really pretty significant impact on my whole life. And, you know, I remember searching for people to model myself after, but it's simply not the same. And it left a hole that it was difficult to fill. And you know, there are people I'm sure who would say, "Oh, that's the reason he's gay, because he was searching for a man to fill that void in his life." I don't buy that at all. But I do feel that it was difficult for me to feel like a man, and that I actually felt more like a man after I came out as gay than I did before. And it's hard to describe that, but that obviously had a big impact. It also created sort of a fear of loss, that I was going to end up living a short time. He died when he was 32. That the year I was 32, I thought I was going to die. You know, all those kinds of things that sort of recurrent. And fortunately, I survived it and got through that year. But I thought a lot about death. And now, of course, I'm old and I've gotten, I've made it. Yeah, you can't touch me now.
Life experience at the Raising Back. I would say moving to New York. I think that was the biggest thing. I moved here 10 years ago. Last week was my 10-year anniversary. Yeah. Moved right out of high school. Moved here to do theater. I was going to be a theater performer. That was like the goal.
Okay.
Was going to go. I eventually went to NYU, but the goal was musical theater when I moved here. And I moved here because I started rehearsals for the first show that I was ever cast in New York. So it was like a transitional moment, but also like extremely exciting and super scary. And I moved to Queens with my sister because she was living there at the time. But I think that move, that like physical relocation, was what spurred most of my, I don't know, like personality traits that I currently have. Like a lot of different things. It was forced me to do a lot of things on my own. Excuse me. It forced me to make a lot of decisions really quickly. I think that was a really influential choice, to not go to Syracuse, where I was supposed to go to college and be an architect, and to move to New York instead and be an actor or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where'd you live in Queens?
I was in Whitestone.
Okay. Bruce's cousin, who is Ozzy Osbourne's right-hand man.
That's right. That's right.
He's from Whitestone.
That's right. Really?
Yeah.
Random.
Yeah.
My fiance wound up being from Whitestone as well.
Really?
Yep. So we actually lived like, a couple streets apart for a year and had no idea who each other were, obviously. But yeah.
Isn't that wild? That's cool.
So
It's wild, right? That's interesting. So, anything else you'd like to add about moving to New York and having the impact that had on you?
It was also the exact couple months that I was coming out. So like that
Really?
was a very transitional period. It was,
Wow.
so I moved to New York and then in November told my parents. I moved in September and then told my parents in November. And then I had been telling my friends and whatever, all at the same time.
Wow.
Crazy.
That must have had that would be life-changing for me.
Yeah.
Especially,
Oh, yeah.
how old were you when this happened?
19.
19.
Just
Wow.
19.
Okay,
I just turned 19. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty wild.